You know, these housing schemes were all over the country, and not just to Great Britain, but there's working class housing schemes all over the world. I know there's great people, and they've all got stories to tell.
Happy children out to play. What street games will we play today? Draw a beddie on the path, marked from 1 to 9. Hop and skip, pick up the tin, but don't step on the line. Playing doublers in the close, singing all the songs. We don't like cheaters in this game, don't they know that's wrong? But wait, I hear the ice cream van, it's music to my ears. No point in asking mum for cash, that would end in tears. What's this? I see a shiny penny lying in the muck. The van is getting closer, I can't believe my luck. He stops at last across the road, I'm over like a hare. A penny mixture please, I say, I'll go and eat this on the stairs. Scraps for swapping from a book, hours and hours of fun, freezing in a concrete close or sitting in the sun. I'm off along to see my pal at number 23, not sure what we'll do today, just need to wait and see. Swimming at the public baths, jumping in and stuff, then up to the wee cafe for a bag of tatty puffs. Put your sixpence in the slot and pull the window down, and if you got the timing right, you could end up with 2. Or tell the wifey with the key, I didn't get my puffs. Aye, she would say, nice try hen, I'm away now in the huff. Happy days at the Northern, a wee bottle of milk with a straw. Not everybody liked it, so I got extra, bra. Carbolic soap to wash our hands that was all dry and brittle. But that's okay, we didn't care, 'cause we were only little. Berries, guising, raiding fruit, out in snow or rain or shine. Making memories every day, you can't take them, they're mine. A wee time at the waterworks, some water from the fountain. Climbing up the concrete wall felt like we climbed a mountain. Then wander to the chippy, a pea buster on your mind. Salt and vinegar and brown sauce, the staff were awfully kind. They'd sneak a pickled onion in, felt like you were so blessed. You'd make it last the whole way home, then it was time for bed. Lifetime friendships forged with love will always stay with me. They can keep the silly fancy names, Muirton is Muirton and always will be. A special little footnote for a very special friend. You were my angel through my life and will be till the end.
Give the lady a round of applause.
The history of Muirton is individual to the people that lived here. For a housing scheme built in the 1930s, we've only just scratched the surface of what was a thriving community for decades before it was eventually knocked down and replaced with a different housing and new style of homes.
There were similar schemes all over Britain. And there was no doubt there was cultural, social, political influences that shaped the community. Families came and went, and much like today, immigration came and made Muirton a richer and diverser place to live.
My mum met a guy for the AST when she was still living at 15C, Ainslie Place with family. He was Sudanese, he was from Khartoum. I think my mum got a lot of discrimination, more than me, in the early days, but then I was too young to sort of witness that. A personal point of discrimination, the odd thing at school and all that, you know, you get called this and that. But growing up, born and brought up in Muirton, everybody kind of accepted me. If I'd came from somewhere else, maybe it might have been a different story. If I'd moved in when I was 9, 10 or something like that. But I was born and brought up with all the neighbours and all the MacArthurs, and I used to be pally with Danny MacArthur and things again. So it was different being born and brought up there.
Living in a close meant you didn't have much anonymity. Passing your neighbours every day in the close, jumping on the same buses to and from town, going to the same places of work even, as if you had a work to go to.
Hello, welcome to Once Upon a Time in the Muirton. I'm Barney.
And I'm Dunks.
And we are here outside one of the original closes. was all demolished and rebuilt into what is now Muirton in the 21st century. It's called the Rookery, I think, officially, but folks still refer to it as Muirton. Running through the closes, kicking about the streets, you know, you had so many different characters, not only the friends that you had, but you had like the rag and bone man coming around, you had the coal man, the milkman, the ice cream vans. You know, you had folk all in the same circumstances. And you really weren't aware, as a kid, what the hardships were that you were actually living in. You were probably aware that some nights it was shit cold and you never had as much as maybe other folk that you went to school with had. But there was something about Muirton which isn't unique. There's plenty of housing schemes all around Scotland, England, the world, no doubt. But the reality is that it's unique to us. Here we are, and what would have been Lindsay Place back in our day. It's at the junction of Gowans Terrace, which was the street that was built after the main heart of Muirton was built. That was built in the 1930s. Gowans Terrace was added in the 1940s. Its name was Gowans Terrace and it's been retained right up until today. It's still Gowans Terrace. But one of the things we found out that was quite interesting was they used German prisoners of war to help build it, amongst other housing schemes.
There was letters, wasn't there? There was no letters from the contractors in the council.
Found them in the library and the archives. And the council was basically saying, this is 1946, remember? So the war ended in 1945. The local authorities are saying to the contractors, you need to let the Germans, the prisoners of the war, go and then employ local labour, because obviously there's going to be plenty of men back in the country.
Of course.
This went on for numerous correspondence between them, and the contractor's main thrust was, we haven't got the time or the money to let the German POWs go to train up local boys because we'll fall far too far back on the project. We've got a schedule to meet. So the Germans kept helping out building a big part of Muirton.
They would have had to have let them go.
Eventually.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah.
And so there's very little left of original Muirton. But in Gowans Terrace, luckily enough, there is some of the original closes that were built in the 1940s and a couple of other homes as well. And there's also some trees left that were planted in 1947 as part of a scheme to beautify Perth and the housing schemes in Perth as well. So,
do you want to go and have a look?
I think we should. So we're at the roots of Muirton now.
Wow, Barney, that's so profound. Do you know how many trees were planted in this phase and what type of trees they were?
Well, the Perthshire article that we found says there were 32 trees planted along the whole of Gowans Terrace. Which it's a lot of trees. It's quite a long street though. They were a mixture of Wheatley pine and white beam. There's a photograph of the Lord Provost Primrose and some of the local kids there. There's a reference to the Councillor Roomgee, and the local kids are there because they've been involved in the whole project because they want them to take part in what's going on and take some responsibility for it. They were kids from Muirton, from the BBs, and they got a metal plaque pinned to the trees that they helped plant, which is quite a nice touch.
Absolutely.
The article goes on to say that the Lord Provost Primrose agrees with Councillor Roomgee that the kids are to take care of these trees, but if anybody sees them being damaged in any way, they have his permission to give them a clock.
To give them a clip on the
Yeah, which is just a sign at the time. But it was also, you know what, this is a good thing, look after it.
Absolutely.
And they're still standing, some of them.
It's amazing.
You know, up and down here, there's at least half a dozen where we are.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you which one's a Wheatley pine or a white beam, to be fair. But here they are, the roots of Muirton.
So Gowans Terrace, where we're standing, I didn't really come here much. Certainly when I was younger. It's only when you kind of grow up a little bit, maybe 10, 11, 12, and you start venturing out of your own area.
Yeah.
You just stayed in your own kind of area, didn't you?
Yeah.
But Gowans being on the edge, the Muirton, I didn't really venture that much into it. It's a very busy street today.
Yeah.
Busier than it was back then. We've got Northlands Community Campus down there to our left, which was St Columbus, and we've got the grammar school behind us, which is a school that we went to.
Yeah. And again, it's not changed from when we were at school, but it's changed even after they were built originally. So St John's campus, or St John's North Inch campus, was originally St Columba's, and that was built in 1965, opened 1966 for the Catholic kids to come to. The original high school, I think, was St John's in the town, then became a primary school, whilst that became the high school. Our school, the high school, the grammar, was the high school. In 1954 that was built, with some temporary buildings, horse huts.
They were 1954?
Before it was built, yeah.
I came here to start my secondary in 1977, and they were still here.
Yeah, and they were still here.
In use.
In use. They were still in use when I was here in 1982. The whole school's been through a massive transformation. I think the other thing that's quite interesting now is that a lot of this was all fields,
Well, this
or
was
open space.
All open space, yeah.
You've got the George Duncan Arena behind us.
Yep.
You've got a huge sports facilities in the grammar, which was developed into the grammar from the high school in 1972, I believe. You've got the sporting facilities in St John's.
Well, it's a community campus.
It's got an outdoor playing surface, it's got indoor courts, it's got loads of stuff, which just didn't exist when we were growing up as
We
kids.
didn't have these facilities.
We had trees in the North Inch to hang about in. Perth Grammar School, our old school. Both went here as boys. Learnt a lot. I've forgotten most of it, I think.
Oh, I didn't learn much.
But plenty of memories. Even that big block there it's new since we were at school.
Aye. Big part of our life, isn't it? And talking about memories, remember Fergie?
Yes.
John Ferguson and Gail, his sister.
Yeah, not so much primary school, but when we hit grammar, when we hit the first year, I remember the English teacher we had, Mrs. McLean.
Yep.
Nice lady. She asked us to go and do this thing on some kind of news event that was big. So I went rifling through these things and found the Yom Kippur War. I'd never heard about it before, you know. I thought it was being cute, but it's too cute because only adults and people that really watch the news knew about the Yom Kippur War, 1973. You know, I'm 12-year-old. Oh, there you go. And I did it word for word. Shooting yourself in the foot, But yeah, they were full of stuff like that. They were awesome.
We're in Gowns Terrace at the top end. Dunkeld Road's just up there. We've just come out of the last close in Gowns Terrace, number 19.
That's it.
Number 1 close is still down there,
Yeah.
and obviously we've got flats in between. And what I love about that is these were built in the 1940s. It's the last bit of Gowns, original Gowns, still standing.
Still remaining, yeah.
Opposite number 19, you've got the waterworks, and this building was opened in a very special year for you,
It was a special
for your family.
It's exactly 1965. That was the year I was born.
The waterworks has got the Perth crest on it, which is pretty cool. But it was also opened by Princess Alexandra in 1965. In front of the waterworks, I don't remember it.
We're talking about the fountain.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a granite fountain there. Liz Lamond mentions it in the poem that she did for Muirton. Don't know where it is now.
I believe it's in a garden in Tulloch.
Right.
So somebody has managed
sacrilege.
to... Well, they've managed to save it
Well, there you
for
go, I
posterity,
suppose,
for the
yeah.
future. And opposite number 1, close, we've got the old police house.
Yeah.
A friend of mine I went to school with, a guy called Alan Morrison, his dad was a local bobby.
Right, okay.
And he lived in one half,
Right.
and we occasionally got to play in the other half where the cells were, which I'm sure a few old Bairns from Muirton will have spent a night or two in there.
We etched their name into the wall somewhere, yeah.
Counting the days off.
Perth was once known as the gateway to the Highlands. The Dunkeld Road, or Stanley Place as it was once named, used to connect Glasgow, Edinburgh and the south to the north of Scotland. You had the Tame Hotel, the ice rink and Muirton Park, home of St Johnstone Football Club. Then we have the shops, which have been a mainstay of Muirton and were included in the original plans from the 1930s. The shops have changed over the years, but still has a chippy, a greengrocer's, post office, and there's still a baker's. We spoke to Mandy Malloch, whose dad Jerry Winton had the bakery in the 1960s.
I think it had been a baker's at one point, whether it was right before my dad took it over, because I remember it was an actual bakehouse. I do remember all the smells of the bakery coming up the stairs, and I think everybody liked it. He was famous for making cream horns. But I can remember him making all the pie shells and the moulds for the pie shells. And like he was down there at, I don't know, 4 in the morning, getting all the bread done and everything. Yeah, he was a baker. He passed his apprenticeship with Worby's the bakers. Worby's was on the Creef Road Bridge. They had a wee shop there. And my dad used to do deliveries for them out to Medfin on his bike, he always told me. And then he did his apprenticeship there, and then he worked for Christie's the bakers. And then he opened his own shop.
Just before the shops, there's the barracks. The Black Watch and the Remitier were all based in there over the years, and some of us joined the Army Cadets. It was attended by young boys and girls grown up in the Muirton and nearby schemes. I remember a lot of friends that made the step to the regular army. It was just another employment opportunity for the working classes in the area.
We've moved slightly along Dunkeld Road from the shops. We're standing where 95 Dunkeld Road would have been, where we spoke to a family who moved to Muirton right at the beginning. They were here, they must have been one of the very first families. 1938 they moved in.
My mum and dad moved there in 1938 and they both died within 4 months of each other in 1978.
I had 3 brothers and 3 sisters, a big family.
What are your memories of moving?
Moving?
Yeah.
Well, I know where I moved from. We moved from Hawarden Terrace because the family grew too big, you see. And we moved to Dunkeld Road. And I didn't like it because I liked Hawarden Terrace.
But did you like the house itself?
Oh, it was nice because you had a bathroom and, you know, because we only just had toilets. And
they were on the stairs, weren't they? The toilet was on the stairs.
You shared it with another family.
Next door to this close used to be Perth Ice Rink, which opened in 1936. At the time, it was considered as being one of the best ice rinks in the United Kingdom. It was home to skating, curling and ice hockey. It was also the home to the famous Perth Panthers ice hockey team, and as many as 3,000 hockey fans would pack the rink for Panthers games on winter Saturday nights. After the Second World War, it was dominated with Canadian players. Sadly, ice hockey ended in 1955 after nearly 20 years of professional ice hockey. Next to the ice rink, we had the famous Muirton Park, where the mighty St Johnstone,
Absolutely.
the now Cup double winning
This is it,
St Johnstone, used to play from about 1924. They used to play down by the prison near the South Inch, and they were here till about 1988. On the Florence Place side, this is where we would come and ask to get lifted over as wee boys instead of paying whatever it was, 25 pence or something back in the day. And that happened a lot. I think a lot of boys would just hang about on the off chance. I was lucky enough to be a ball boy at Muirton Park, early 1980s. I remember you would go in the front door with all the players and everything else, but then they would go to the changing room and we'd go to the boiler room. Get thrown a tracksuit, one size fits all. And the ball boy manager was a guy called Jimmy Wallace.
Jimmy Wallace, yeah, Jimmy was a great character, wasn't he?
Huge St Johnstone fan.
Massive.
Very well known, I think, amongst Saints supporters. And he lived across the road in Stanley Crescent.
Right.
He's sadly passed on now. Somebody else that we know that's a huge St Johnstone fan.
John McLeish.
John McLeish.
I think my first match was with my uncle. I think he took me to a match in Old Muirton, and it was around about 1969. I met a couple of guys, Dennis Barnes and Mike Syme, and they were massive St Johnstone fans. They were home and away all the time. Mid to late 80s, started going to football matches with them and just got hooked, just got the bug for going to Muirton. So I followed them home and away, and I've been to European matches. The Aberdeen match, when they played them in the Scottish Cup, probably about 88, I think it was, 87, 88. So at that time, Muirton Park was a bit run down at the time, and I think Aberdeen were expecting a huge crowd for this one. I think maybe it was a quarter-final or something. To get the big crowd, they needed to put segregation fences up. I'm sure Aberdeen paid for those segregation fences, but probably didn't get as many fans down as they expected, because it was an awful day, been raining, and the pitch was just an absolute quagmire. It was just a very dogged display by St Johnstone, and Aberdeen won 1-0. I remember the last game at Muirton Park, made it a bit of a celebration. My pals and I went away to the pub before big queues to get in, you can imagine, last game. I got the badge, there was a little badge you got. I think some people got a little letter and that telling you a bit about Muirton Park and so a wee bit of history about it. And I'm sure the football fan scene, I remember the name, Wendy Who I think it was called, I gave you a plastic fork on that so you could go and dig up the pitch and everything after the after the match. And I think it was Ayr United, and I think they won it 1-0. Maybe John Sludden was maybe the scorer, who was an ex-St Johnstone player. Typical, these kind of things happening, yeah. But yeah, so I remember the last game at Muirton Park.
Bob Islands, okay.
Bob Islands?
Bob Islands.
Which is actually Bob Ireland.
Which is actually Bob Island, who
was a St Johnstone footballer. The other thing that tickles me about Bob Islands is on the way to school you might pop in for a wee penny mixture. On the way back to school you might have got claimed in the playground at lunchtime. That's what you'd end up having your fight.
The fights were always behind Bob Islands, yeah.
You're claimed, meet you after school at the back of the shops. I had a paper round here.
Oh, right.
My paper round took me along Muirton Bank. And
posh uses.
Oh, the posh uses, big long garden. And the Muirton Bank is where Lady Watson Watt lived. Robert Watt,
yeah,
who was credited with the invention of radar.
Yeah, that's right.
And it wasn't until many years after that Lady Watson Watt herself got the recognition she deserved for helping him with the development of radar and improving the technology, because she was a jeweller to trade. And her dexterity, her manipulation of the circuit boards and everything else that he was trialing and error and finding out what was working, helped him develop the technology that we know as radar, and ultimately, I think quite significantly, helped win the Second World War.
Absolutely.
But
yeah,
there's a more important part to Lady Watson Watt's story. And that is that we know a family who lived in Malvina Place whose dad was the gardener of Lady Watson Watt.
When I look back now, it was like something out of Downton Abbey. Kind of that sort of car, and she'd come clumping up with her hat, and she always had a fur thing on. It wouldn't be a stoat when I'd done thingies, but she looked so elegant. But I think they used to always fall out because my dad was quite a character. And they used to do Lady Watson Watt's garden every Sunday. And some Sundays he'd come home and he'd be in a foul mood. And I would hear my sister, she was older, my mum, I'd do it to fawn out. She just fate. The next week, in the middle of the week, you hear the car, because there's no cars. She drove it herself. Oh, Dad, here's Lady Watson Watt. Well, he'd up off the chair and flee into the kitchen. Tell her I'm no in. So Mother had to go to the door, so she'd be sorting her hair and taking her penny off. And I was listening at the door of the living room. Oh, good afternoon, Lady Watson, but Father's not in. It would either be Father's not in or David's not in. Well, so she gave him a message, so my mum would come in. And a wee while later, my dad would say, right, Davina, get down to that Lady Watson Watt. And how this ever come about, he would say to me, now says you to her, and says her to you. Now, how on earth, to this day, do I ken how he knew what she was going to say to me?
Well, the reason I've brought it is because, without a doubt, every old Muirton Bairn, give or take one or two, would have at some point seen it. Whether they'd known they'd seen it or inadvertently they'd seen it, I guarantee that they probably would have seen it as they passed through and whatever, So this was liberated in the demolition of Muirton by my wife's uncle, and this is for me because this is where I was brought up. So, and this is the original, by the way. This is authentic. So, and my number was 17, Ainsley Place. And I think there must have been about maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 or 9 of these. I know of 2 that exist. One's here and one's in a workshop in Fuse Road. And beyond that, I'm not really sure where they disappeared to. So it is who we are. It is who the community were. It says it all in a name, for me anyway, because this is where I was brought up. Ainsley Place.
We got a house round in Ainsley Gardens, and it was in midsummer 1963. And it was Cappy Oswald, the coalman, that flitted us round to Ainsley Gardens on the back of his lorry.
And the coal lorry.
And the coal lorry, yes, aye, indeed, aye. And Cappy never yet took a penny fares for it. No, he was such a good man, you know, a nice man. So anyway, your father had went down, and it was Walker's, the furniture shop in the South Street at the time. And then he went and he bought this, he got this lovely formica-topped table and the 3 stools.
These stools, for me, my mum brings them out every Christmas for us when we have our Christmas dinner or New Year's dinner. Well, I was born in 1964. My mum had moved in '63, so the stools were there before I was born.
The stools had the matching blue seats to go with the formica top, and on tick, of course. We thought we were archie because we had, and that they are now coming up midsummer. They'll be 59-year-old, so there you go. That's my Muirton stools.
Behind us, we've got Balhousie Street.
Top end of Balhousie Street.
We are where I would say is we're beginning to enter the heart of Muirton. This would have been Ainsley Gardens.
Yep.
As we go left or right.
Yep, I think we're standing right at the gate of St Stephen's Church.
Built in 1954. It came from Paradise Place down near the bus station. Yep. It was moved down here, and the minister conveniently left the Muirton Bank. He only had a wee short walk to come and preach to his congregation.
Well, I was here as a lot of the boys and girls, Boys Brigade, first company Boys Brigade were based here at St Stephen's, and you had the Girls' Guides as well.
Yeah. Jumble sales.
Yeah,
there was
weddings.
Discos, weddings. It was a proper community church.
And I lived just across here in 34F, Ainsley Gardens. Mum moved here in '62. She was in hostel. She had my older sister, and then when Jimmy came along, she requested a house in the Muirton. So they offered her Letham. But I think my sister was already at the nursery at Florence Place, and that was our first ever house. And it had loads of fond memories for us all, eh? So '62, I was born here, and we were there until 1985.
All your formative years spent here.
Everything. But this tree here is one of the original trees that sat outside on what we called the triangle. I was never out of it. I was always getting chased for some of the older neighbours. If you weren't out the back playing, you were out the front.
Community spirit.
Absolutely.
Malvina Place. Yeah. And it's still called Malvina Place. You've got, I guess, our Malvina Place, and then as you go down towards Balhousie Street, you've got the posh end. Yeah. With the posh houses. Aye. We lived in the top, and I was thinking about this the other day. We never called them flats. It was our house. Aye. Our house was on the top.
Yeah, that's right.
70F Malvina Place. Moved in 72, 73. My dad, we'd moved in from Dunham. We were staying there, and we were coming into Perth. My dad was offered Hunters first. He refused that, then Letham, and Mum didn't like what was offered there. And we eventually, third time lucky, got 70F Malvina. Down beneath us was Pina. Pina came across from Italy in the early 60s. Yeah.
My dad died ages ago. My mum and 4 sisters all been alive when I left in Italy. 18-year-old when I came in, 18 and a half, 1962. No jobs, no money because been poor, because everything had been destroyed with the war. Wee village, just a wee village. Condursi. No thing perfect, and just maybe a couple of pubs, and maybe 3-4 shops.
Having neighbours like Pina is just one of the reasons I remember Muirton so fondly. Even today, when I walk through the new Muirton, I can still see and hear them.
There is no doubt politics shaped housing schemes like Muirton. In fact, Muirton was built because of politics. Legislation was put in place in the early 1900s to replace the horrible slums that many lived in. By 1939, across Britain, over 240,000 slum houses had been cleared and 700,000 new homes built. Muirton was new and fresh, nearly 600 family homes. Moving there would have been a positive experience for a lot of families. It was much preferable to the small, cramped and unsuitable housing they'd moved from. Since it was built, we've had World War II
hydro dams, a new queen, rock and roll, a man on the moon, 3-day weeks, long hot summer of 76, punk rock, Thatcher, computerisation, VHS, YTS, mobile phones, a pandemic, a new king, and food banks. Yet 100 years on from the 1919 Housing Act, Britain is still suffering from a housing crisis, where again the poorest are in the most vulnerable position, finding themselves unable to afford suitable housing to live in.
It was officially classed as a scheme of deprivation in the mid-80s, and the decision was finally made in the 1990s to demolish, rebuild and rename. In 2016, the Scottish Government committed to build 50,000 new affordable homes to help tackle Scotland's housing emergency. Policy and decision makers have a notion that all is needed for a community to thrive and prosper is to build back and front doors, double glazing and plant some trees, when it is needing much, much more. As recently as 2020, the new housing in Muirton was listed in the bottom 10% of the most deprived areas in the whole of Scotland. This was according to the new Scottish Index of Multiple Deprivation, and you have to ask what has been achieved in 100 years. And come to the conclusion ultimately, it's not about the houses, the bricks, the mortar. It's about the people in them. It's about the lives they live and the way that they connect. Our experience is that the people in Muirton had a sense of community spirit and a companionship that still holds relationships together today. Our hope for the people living there is that they will have good lives, and in the future they're able to look back with fondness on this place they call home. The place we will always call Muirton. In the scheme, there were streets. In the streets, there were the closes. In the closes was the community. Our Muirton was all closes, 6 block or 4 block. Some of the close windows were at the back, some were at the front. The ones at the front had traditional style sash windows. The middle window had an ornamental wrought iron balcony. The sash window frames in our house were painted white, but they were originally dark green. It seemed every street had a neighbour that would be at the windy, watching the Muirton world go by.
Each close had an arch-shaped entrance, framed with pink-coloured stone. The number at the top, black background, white numbering, dark grey stone stairs and landings, railings, banisters from top to bottom, wooden front doors to each house, small windows, cast iron letterbox. Above each door, A, B, C, D, E or F. Down the lobby, bedrooms to the side, the living room at the end with a coal cellar next to it. Bathroom facing the back green, next to that, the back bedroom. Living room with alcove, coal fire, tiled hearth, coal companion set, brush, shovel, tongs and poker. Kitchen off the living room with a larder that had a small mesh window, a washing pulley hanging from the ceiling and an immersion boiler in the corner. In the winter, there'd be ice on the windows and burst pipes were common.
Out the front, some had beautifully kept lawns with the odd floral border, back greens with washing lines and clothes poles. When it was raining, the close was a space you'd sit with your pals, playing jacks, older lads played cards, pitch and toss, lassies played doublers, jump down the steps, running and leaping up the steps, sliding down the banisters. The postie, the polis, milkman, coalman, paperboy, the provvy wife, household, bonner cord juice laddies, travelling salesmen selling once-in-a-lifetime bargains, truant officers chasing wayward bairns,
travelling folk selling lucky white heather, and they all passed through the close.